For the Kozol Representation project, I chose to make a meme that I felt both properly highlighted a main point made by Kozol in the novel and added a bit of light humor to an otherwise horrific and dehumanizing situation. The meme shown on screen depicts a man ignoring his girlfriend, who should be his main focus, in favor of a more appealing woman. I believe this perfectly illustrates the absurdity of the American government during the 1990s, as highlighted by Kozol. The Republican policymakers of the 1990s are likened to the distracted man. The top 1% of America is depicted as the more appealing option for the man, while the suffering kids described in the novel are shown as the woman who is clearly offended and hurt by her man's focus. The main idea that I am attempting to highlight with the meme is the social injustice present throughout the book, as well as the seeming invisibility of the boys in the book. Kozol attacks the horrific living conditions in the South Bronx while simultaneously imploring conservatives to make a full-blown systemic change. This relates to what Susan Greenbaum was preaching in her article, Debunking the Pathology of Poverty, as she states that the premise that poor people are poor because of their fail-prone culture has been scientifically rejected. Instead, Greenbaum argues that the culture of the rich actually perpetuate poverty in the U.S. through their greed and malpractice. She says we must accept that the government can help and must rely on the policymakers of the country to take a stand and make positive and appropriate change. This is a large part of what Kozol argued for as well, a change in the system to help poor people gain wealth rather than ignoring their needs because they are inconvenient for them. Kozol sheds light throughout the novel on the ineptitude of the quote-unquote support systems provided to the ghettoized areas and the complete ignorance of policymakers to these struggling individuals. On page 34, Kozol highlights the knowledge of policymakers to their troubles. He writes about the decision to make the family's horrific, disgusting buildings sweetened, but not in actual living quality, just in outward appearance. This proves that officials know about the hardship that these families face, yet they chose to simply ignore it for their own benefit. This idea from Kozol fits perfectly into the article Imagine a Country by Holly Sklar. She repeatedly offers examples of unjust systemic flaws. For example, she exclaims, "Imagine a country where 1 out of 4 are poor, yet wealth is distributed upwards." Or, "Imagine a country where more and more jobs are keeping people in poverty instead of out of poverty." Or, "A country where some are paid so little their children go without basic necessities, while some have so much that their grandchildren could live in luxury without having to work at all." And the list goes on and on of her enlightening examples. What Sklar is getting at is the basic foundational flaws of the American system. You read that as an American and immediately most are able to recognize that those statements should never come to fruition, yet we do nothing to stop it. The repetition of the phrase, "imagine a country," shows how completely unheard of these statements are, yet they are factual and nobody does anything to stop it. American policymakers don't have to go through it, so why would they try to fix it? Is an inhumane and fundamentally wrong reason and response to the outcries of oppressed individuals written about by Kozol. Kozol attacks the Giuliani Republican administration in the South Bronx as they make changes to allow the rich to get richer through continued tax cuts, while they make up for this lack of income by reducing their spending on the social programs needed for sufficient living conditions in the ghettos of the Bronx. As Americans, we must stop this incredulous behavior and accept that these realities do exist, and that the best way to help these people is to focus our attention on improving the conditions of their lives, having a more even distribution of wealth in our country, and acknowledging that many of these kids aren't even given a chance to overcome systemic oppression. All of which are values highlighted by Kozol throughout the novel.